Hello, this video is about the quiz application that you are developing in C# and Windows Forms with Visual Studio. I'll be using the first 7 slides of this PowerPoint, which will be made available to you, parts of your C# Windows Forms project. And what I want to do is I want to talk to you about each of the components in the project. I'll just minimize that. So here's the Quiz App project here in the Solution Explorer, and I want to clear up any misunderstandings that people have about these different parts of the code. So just close some of these. So on the first slide, I am going to talk about program.cs. But before I carry on, there's a little disclaimer here that all of the names of these files are the default, basically. So if you've made any changes to these, then you'll have to sort of tie up what I'm saying with what is actually here. But these are the defaults, and I want you to know what these different pieces of code do. Okay, so let's start with program.cs, and that's this one here. And that sounds quite important, and it is, because it is, as it says here, the main entry point for the application. So if we don't have this file, this app isn't going to be working at all. And here you've got static void main, which is the main method of execution. However, we don't actually do anything with this, so we should leave it well alone. So that's the slide for that one, so don't touch that. Then we have form1.designer.cs. I can see that one here. If I double click on that, that's clearly some C# code, and this is important, but it is not something that we should be concerning ourselves with. So program.cs was the code that gets the application going and sets certain parameters, and Form1 Designer is more concerned with what the form actually looks like. So the position of objects, colors, etc., and the way that the form behaves. Again, you don't need to touch that, but I'm sure that serious C# developers probably would. We then have one, form1.cs brackets design, and that doesn't appear in the list here on the right hand side in the Solution Explorer, but it is available. So form1.cs is available by clicking on that part there in the Solution Explorer, and it comes up form1.cs design, as you'll see over here. So what's this one all about? So as this slide explains, that this is the form that you work on during the project, and it's the visual aspect of it. So form1.designer CS was the code behind it, but this is the visual bit. So this is the user interface, and when you add buttons and tabs and things like that, it gets added to this code. So there's some tab pages on mine added there, but as I said, you don't really need to worry about form1.designer CS because you can do it all on here. A little recap, of course, I've got a 5 tab form here, so I've got this big tab control, and you've also discovered how to make these disappear when you run the quiz application. There is something else that I would like to say about form1.cs design, and it's important for you. If you click on, say, a button, and this is button 1, which is the first answer of the quiz questions. If you double click on an item, you get taken to some code in Form 1CS, and this is the click event for that object, and you can see here there's click events for all of the other objects as well. Now, we haven't talked about Form 1CS yet. I was saving the best till last, but that's where it goes. So you go from Form 1CS design, double click on something, that's where the question goes, and it takes you to an event for that particular object. Up next is form1.cs. I realise that these names are all rather similar, but hopefully you can distinguish between them. And this is the heart of the action of your app. So in layman's terms, your code goes here. It's the code that decides what the form does. Okay, not what it looks like, or not what objects are there, or where they're positioned, or their colours. It's the actual activity that you want to put in, the functionality you want to put into the user interface. And you have to start with your using statements. So remember, the using statements are certain libraries from C# that you want to add. The two highlighted there should be sufficient for you. You have the namespace quiz app, which you don't need to worry about too much. And then you have this public partial class form1 form. So this is Visual Studio's way of setting up the code behind the form. And then you have public form1, which I've condensed there. And this is where, in a previous video, I would have showed you how to make the tabs appear and disappear. This bit has to come before things like the quiz variables class or the populate question controls. Otherwise it should throw an error and it won't let you run it. So what it's saying is, form1CS, it demands that the first bit of code that it runs is the code that actually sets up the form for the user. So that's all of them. If you were to concertina up all the parts of form1CS, as I'm doing now, okay, you should see something like this. Public form1, these little dots here indicate that there's curly braces and then code afterwards. Public static class quiz variables. Okay, so form1 has to come first. Then quiz variables, I would put next. And then I've got populate the question controls as another method there. And check answer as a method following as well. There's my proper check answer. That one there is just one in comments. Okay. After that, you have all the events. Okay, so on this second slide here of form1CS, we've got all of these things, and they're usually something like this: private, void, then the name of the object. This one happens to be button 1. Then the type of event. Often it's a click event, but not always, because not all objects are clickable. And then here you have object sender, comma, event args, E. And then after that is the code, which is the action that takes place for this particular event. Okay, don't fiddle about with this code here, or the object sender, or the event args. You'll be doing your editing in there. And if I show you one of these, button 1 answer. Okay, so that's the full code is here. So there's nothing, I haven't done anything with that. It's just as is, as it's been generated for me. And there's a method that I'm going to talk about on another occasion. and here are the parameters that I'm putting into that method. So when I run, or when somebody clicks on button 1 answer during the quiz, it runs that method check answer. And remember what I said at the start of this video, if you click on any of these objects on the form as you're coding, you go through to that particular click event. Don't believe me? Go to button 2 here, and here I am. I'm below the code that I was just looking at, and I've got the same code for that button as well. And actually I've got the same code for button 3 and button 4 for reasons that I'll explain later. But every time somebody clicks the answer button, bang, 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 they're going to run one of these pieces of code. Okay, that's the end of this video, and look out for further ones in this series. Thank you for watching.